أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Al-Abbas Al-Sudani and this is podcast وسطا. I'm very happy today to host a special guest from India, the Hashimi firstly, and the professor in international politics, the expert in international conflicts, and a Fulbright fellow in New York, Sayyid Jaleel Hussein موسوي. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Shukran.
We are honored to host such a special guest like you.
Honor is all mine.
Thank you. So, Professor, firstly, let me ask you about the general international affairs of Shia in India. I mean, are Shia in India influencer on a global system or global scale or even international scale around the region?
When you look at international politics in general, international politics is dictated by and run by states, not by individuals. So what happens is there are different states. There's Iraq, Iran, there is India, Pakistan, USA. These are different states that form international politics. Their interactions create ripple effects down to the level of individuals.
Yeah, but we can say there are three levels to affect international relations, international affairs: the states level and the institutions level and the persons level, personally.
Yeah, I agree. But that's what I'm talking about. Levels of analysis approach is a wonderful way of looking at international politics. But what happens is the individual affects the state. Those states' policies affect international politics.
Yeah,
so
that's the channel, yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is when, as an individual, as a Shia, I am teaching in a university. So I write different articles, do different podcasts, attend different policy conferences. That's how I affect the policies of the state, which is India in my case.
You teach in the University of Delhi?
Yeah, I teach in a university called Jamia in Delhi. It is run by and funded by the government of India. It's a central university, and it's a very, very prestigious university in India. Because we're located in the capital of India, which is Delhi, the effect on discourse is much more than other universities. So we occupy that geographical centrality, if I may, in that sense. So back to your question, as Shias, like other groups, we compete for political power in India. So once we affect policy making or public discourse, that's how we affect policy making, national policy making, and that's how international orders are created. That's how international policies and discourse and narratives are formed. So of course it boils down to the individual, but through states.
Yeah, it's like a relative thing. But from your demonstration, we can consider Shia and our influencer even on small scale. So let me ask you about this thing: the outside actions for Shia. I mean, for example, the actions that happening in the Middle East today, the conflicts in the area, which is obviously we can consider Shia as a part of this, as a side, a basic side in this conflict, and being against the other side. Does that affect on Shia in India? Because Shiatism in Middle East, which is like considered the capital of Shia around the world, that affect the Shiatism in other countries, but mostly in Western countries. Does that affect Shiatism in India especially?
It's a very good question. I think there are two ways of looking at it. One is the positive impact. If you look at Shias of India, going back to my earlier, analysis about the centrality of states. If you look at this region that you are talking about, we call it West Asia, but generally in the West, and here you call it Middle East, right? So Iran has been a Shia state for a long time, right? What has happened now is, for the first time, after a long time in the modern world, you have Iraq appearing as an oasis of stability, right? So what has happened is Iraqi Shias are at the front and center of nation building in Iraq now. Mm-hmm. And whatever happens here, that directly affects, both in Iran, especially in Iran and Iraq, that directly affects Shias in India. Let me give you an example. Directly affects. Mm-hmm. So both in terms of discourse and also in terms of public perception. Now, Shias in India are a minority within a minority within a minority. It's not a double blind, it's a triple blind. Because you have...
How many Shia in India?
Well, it's a difficult estimate. It's very difficult to estimate. But when you look at Shias of India, they're very diverse, right? So India is a huge state. So you have different ethnicities. It's a continent of diversity. Mm-hmm. So you have Shias of Hyderabad who are different from, that is South India, who are different from Shias in North India.
Different, you mean culturally?
Culturally, ethnically, they speak different languages. I am from Kashmir, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, that has been at the heart of conflict between India and Pakistan, and also China is involved now. We speak a different language. I'm ethnically different. So my socio-political issues, cultural issues are different from rest of Shias. But what unites us, just to answer your question, is the developments in the Shia world. Right? What unites us more is our reverence and deference to marja'iyat.
And that targeting that just came to my mind, this thing, this experience, let me say, in India, is just targeting the main purpose of the conference of Ummatan Wasata, the citizenship of Shia. It means that Shia belong to their countries nationally, but they share the same religion perspective, the same aqidah, the same sha'a'ir. So it could be a good example for Shia citizenship.
Oh, totally. It was. I think it was one of the most relevant sections of the conference. Mm-hmm. All sections were relevant in different ways, but this was very relevant because an overwhelming number of Shias are not living in Shia majority countries like Iran and Iraq. They're living as minorities. So for them, the first challenge is to be a part of nation-building processes, national identity formation in their respective states. Take my case. I'm a Kashmiri. Now, the overwhelming majority of Kashmiris are Sunnis, right? About 85%, or even some would say 90% of Muslims in Kashmir are Sunnis. Then you have Shias, about 10 to 15%, depending on the estimation. How you count them. So I have to first connect with my ethnic community, with my local community, Kashmiris, right? So that we are sort of co-brethren, we are co-sponsors of the processes of community building, nation building, and then it would go to the level of state building. So exactly what you said in the beginning, there are different levels of analyses, but there are also different levels of duties of citizenship. So I have to start with my community, then I go at the state level, then the national level.
And that's my third, let me say, curiosity. You know, in this beautiful, this great meeting with you, I was curious about some level of influences. I asked you about influence of Shia around the world. I asked you about the influence of Shia outside the Hind, the India, inside India. Let me bring my third curiosity. I'm curious about the influence of Shia inside India. Influence them on other religion and on Sunnis. I mean, the influence of Shia on Sunnis in India and influence of Shia on Hindus, other religion in India. You know, we call it Al-Hind Baladul Adyan. There are many religions in India. So how did Shia influence other religion in India?
Well, again, it's a very relevant question, but it needs a lot of time. But because of the paucity of time, I'm going to sum it up. India is truly a microcosm of diversity. I mean, it's a continent of diversity. There are diverse religions. You have Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims. Within Muslims, you have different confessions. You have Sunnis. Within Sunnis, you have so many divisions. You have Barelvis, Deobandis, Salafis, and all kinds of, so also Shias, different confessions of Shias. But what has happened is Shias have been very active in different processes of nation building, state building. There are different professors in different universities. A wonderful part of literature produced in different languages is produced by Shias. I mean, there are a lot of nationally recognized poets who are Shias in different languages.
Wow.
And also there are some very good authors who are Shias, important historians who are Shias. Some are also important people in government, in local governments in states, but also at the national level. So the prime focus of Shias as a community is to build bridges with other communities. So for a Muslim majority state like Kashmir, the prime focus would be building bridges with the Sunni community. For people in Hyderabad or in UP, their prime focus is to build bridges with Hindu community, right? So that you evolve a discourse where the followers of Ahlul Bayt are seen as builders and not as people who destroy or are irritants, right? That's not a message that we want to put across, and that's certainly not in our interest.
So I've heard a story once. I want to ask you about, if you can tell me. I've heard that there are some Hindus people who do sha'air, who participate in mawakib in India. Is it right? And how?
This is absolutely right. I mean, I have read a lot of poetry. I mean, there are a few books that I have in mind, in different languages, by the way. In Urdu especially, and also in Kashmiri, you have Pandits who have written Norhas, like Marsiya, about Sayyid al-Shuhada, alayhi salam. There are Hindus who...
So you mean the writers are Hindus?
The writers are Hindus.
Wow,
yeah.
That's amazing.
We call them Pandits in Kashmir. Hindus call
Pandits.
Mm-hmm. So they are the Brahmins, who basically the preachers.
Mm-hmm.
They have written wonderful Norhas, sometimes celebrating what Ahlul Bayt have done, but most of the time that is literature on mourning, And that literature is just amazing. And it's amazing to see how non-Muslims sort of talk about Ahlul Bayt. But that's not only about non-Muslims. Also, an overwhelming majority of Sunnis, they revere Ahlul Bayt. And in Kashmir, they have written great pieces of literature about Ahlul Bayt in praise of Ahlul Bayt. I also know some important poets who have done that. A remarkable literature.
So that's considered as a sign for the cultural effectiveness. I can demonstrate, me as a stranger for this situation in Hind, but I can demonstrate that Shia in Hind have affected other religion, other components in India. Even if not, they didn't affect them like regionally. They didn't affect them like make them become Shia, but they affect them like culturally. The culture is so. Talk me about the culture effectiveness that Shia caused to other religion in India.
Well, it's again, you nailed it. What has happened is the cultural. When you evolve a culture in a society, every group has to contribute in the making of that culture. And Shias have a contributor. I will give a very good example. When India was not divided, you have in 1947, the Indian subcontinent was divided and two countries were born, India and Pakistan,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you ask anyone in any of those countries, both Muslims, Hindus, or any other people, who is the greatest poet produced in the subcontinent? Arguably, most people would say Mirza Ghalib. Mirza Ghalib was Mirza Asadullah Khan Ghalib, a Shia Isna Ashari.
MashaAllah.
I think if you look at the world stage, he is one of the greatest poets in the world. I mean, I compare him with the greatest. He has written ghazals, I mean, just beautiful. And if you look at his ghazals, he's also written a marsiya, but it's a short marsiya. But most of his literature is ghazal literature. And he is loved across the subcontinent. His primary language is Urdu, but he has also written in Farsi. There are also other examples that I can talk about because this is not about poetry, but I just wanted to put this across.
Yeah, poetry is one of the culture tools.
One of the most important ingredients of culture.
The most important, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Professor, India is considered one of the most developing countries. I'm focusing on this word, on this term. One of the most developing countries around the world. I think the population of India now is targeting the population of China.
It has already surpassed. It has already done that.
MashaAllah.
So
that means you have the quantity of people to affect the public mind around the world. And Shia is one component of the population. My point is, firstly, let me ask you that. Talk me about the political presence of Shia in India. So I can bring my another question.
So Shias are an absolute minority, as I said, minority within a minority within a minority, right? The triple blind is because Shias are divided on ethnic and cultural lines. I already talked about it. So they are trying to influence politics, have been active in politics, still are active in politics. But of course, in a country where you are about 5% of the total population, you're going to have certain advantages and disadvantages, right? But yes, political presence of Shias is there, and they're trying to be part of governance, increasingly more and more.
So now it's like a series. If we affect the political of India, we can affect the political of region, then we can affect the political of the global system, let me say. Now, Shia in India, I mean, we are Iraqis, but in ziyarat of Al-Arba'in of Imam Al-Hussein, Shia of India are special. They came to ziyarah with a thirsty for ziyarah. And that one sign that could define their diversity, their environment, and their desire to ziyarah. So, what about the Shia arts in India? Because Shia arts is the most important explanation, can explain their feelings, their inside idea, their inside believings.
You mean arts? You're talking about
Shia arts, exactly. In such their ways or their channels, mawakib, majalis, their traditional way to Aza'il al-Imam al-Hussein and...
So what you have, if you go to any Shia areas in India, in any part of India, you have, you have Hussainiyas here. We call them Imam Badas, right?
You call them?
Imam Bada. Imam Bada.
Imam Bada. It's a synonym for Hussainiya.
It's a Hussainiya, yeah.
So
Imam Badas are ubiquitous in India. So wherever there are Shia areas, you have these Imam Badas. And they show the regional variation in architecture, right? So if you go to Kashmir, you have Imam Badas that are made, in a certain with a certain architectural taste. You go to Hyderabad, you have Imam Badas that are about 400, 500 years, some of the Imam Badas are pretty old. And in Lucknow, you have one of the most beautiful Imam Bada complexes. I call them complexes because there are the whole gamut of Imam Badas, right? And they are huge. I mean, it's difficult to find that size of Hussainiyas here. They're huge because, of course, you have to cater to a huge population, right? The population is huge. The population of India right now is 1,400 million and counting. Yeah, so that's a lot of population, 1.4 billion people. So Indian Shias are huge in number compared to what you have in Iraq. You have more Shias in India. Although they are a minority, they're much more than you have in Iraq, in spite of Iraq being a Shia majority. So imagine a country like India that is poised to be the third largest economy in a few years. You already have it around number 5, $3.5 trillion economy. It's growing fast. So what?
Yeah, that's my point. Talk me about the economy of Shia in India.
Yeah, so what happens is, because we're all part of our different national identities, something that you put across early, you are an Iraqi, a stable and prosperous Iraq is in your interest. That is true for all countries. So what is happening is, once India is growing, and it's growing at a stupendous pace, so what happens is, it has a lot of advantages for the constituent populations. And what Shias are doing right now is they're trying to focus more and more on education, developing expertise in different areas. So there's a lot of focus on R&D, research and development in India. So Shias are going in those areas. You have a lot of people going into IT, into engineering fields, computer sciences, artificial intelligence, academia. We've started, it was slow, it's picking up, but the focus is on the rise of India. Once India rises, it's rising fast. So Shias are trying to take advantage of that rise and trying to maximize their economic gains.
That's a very good point. I think you demonstrated as one of recommendations of the citizenship panel that we need more academic people, more Shia academic people, more Shia researchers. So you, as a professor in a university, talk me about the Shia researchers, the Shia academic, on two scales. I don't want to say how many are they, but are they like good in? Their number is enough to represent Shia in this academic field and researching field, and talk me about their quantity. Sometimes you have Shia academic, but he's not interesting in this field. Let's be honest, frankly speaking. I have a friend who is Shia academic, and he's very important academic in one of Western countries, but he's not interesting in marketing Shia, in support Shia. So are the Shia academic in Hind interesting? They carrying this value or not? Or they just like my friend?
It's an interesting question, but this is a phenomenon globally. So you will always find in every country, especially in the West, but almost in every country, you have certain people who are of your denomination, in this case Shias, who would not be interested in those questions. They are sort of secular people who do not want to be part of that.
Even not Shia. Christian people are not interested in.
Yeah, it's true for all communities. So I think it's generally that 80-20 rule, or at best 30% of Shias would be interested in those questions.
MashaAllah.
Yeah. So what happens is, there would be some scholars who are interested in those questions, who are interested in the question of the progress of the community. They're very progressive Shias, but they also want others to have that kind of progress. They also want to uplift others, so that there is. So when you look at, I think globally that's true for all communities, but talking about Shias, there is this 80-20 principle where 20% of the people would be interested in community building. Yes. So as an academic, when you grow up, you climb the ladder, you are at a certain level. You can help others also reach there. So in the case of some of the academics that I know, what they do is, you're operating in a secular society, in a diverse society. What you do is, you help Shia researchers, you mentor them. You help them with their publications. You help them apply to different universities, because you also have to take care of the questions of justice in that society, right? So, for example, if you come to me and ask me about your work, about certain comments, to a proposal, how to publish. That's how I'm going to help you. And there are I know a lot of such people who do that kind of work without compromising on their professional ethics and focusing on the question of justice.
MashaAllah, very honored, very happy to learn. I've learned a lot from this session about India, about Shiism in India, and I'm honored to have to host a guest like you, Professor Sayyid Jaleel. We as Iraqis, we make our priority is Sayyid. Then as a Shia, then a professor. So happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, sisters and brothers, and for other podcasts. That was Al-Abbas Al-Sudani. Goodbye.